Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 751 with a review of Saltburn. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, Stephen and I are getting ready. Stephen's about to be gone for a week. But we happen to catch early screening of both Saltburn and Dream Scenario. So we are rapidly recording some episodes for you before Stephen goes off to pack and disappear so that we can kind of like string these episodes out in the time that he's going to be gone. Yeah,
I'm calling my shot too. I'm gone the week of Thanksgiving. So if you're listening to this and it's after Thanksgiving, know that it just took a while to push these all out.
Well, I mean, we still have two other ones in the queue. It turns out, scheduling a bunch of during the week screenings is it gets away from the time that you would be spent doing an actual edit.
It makes it tough. I'm feeling old because every night this week I have had some kind of thing I was doing. Often multiple things I was doing. Like Monday we watched a screening and then recorded. Tuesday I drove down south to meet some friends for dinner. Yesterday we watched a screening and then I went to a comedy podcast taping after that. I'm just exhausted. I do not like doing things. And I've been here. I'm recording this from my not quite home office, which I have been in since 5:30 this morning, and I am very tired.
Yeah. No, it's been a long day. We're gonna get through these episodes though, Stephen, and we're gonna have a good time doing it. That's our spoiler warning promise. You ready to do it?
I'm ready.
All right, let's take a listen to the trailer for Saltburn and then come back and give these generous folks listening a review.
Did you know there was a college Christmas party tonight? NFI, me and you. Not fucking invited. You alright?
Yeah, I've got a flat tire.
Take my bike.
Hey, that is so kind. Thank you. I'm sorry I don't know your name. I'm Felix.
Oliver.
Oliver. Oliver, I love you. I love you. All right, cheers, Ollie.
My parents, they've got problems.
What do you mean, problems?
I don't think I'll ever go home again.
Well, why don't you come home with me? Come to Saltburn.
Mr. Quick.
Wow.
And here he is now.
Oh, what beautiful eyes. Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, I told you he wasn't a minger.
Oh, but darling, you're kind about everyone. You can't be trusted.
I had them hang up an old school dinner jacket. We dressed for dinner here.
Dressed for dinner?
Yeah, it was like black tie.
I think I like you even more than last year's one. You're so,
So what?
real.
Can't have been easy for Venetia. With you being a mother.
Why?
Now it's time to take things up a notch.
Shawty had them apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur.
This place... it's not for you.
Lots of people get lost in Saltburn.
Oh, that's just giving me goosebumps. Look, Pamela. Oh, no.
I think you're marked. Quiet, harmless, drawn to shiny things.
What have you done? I just thought that maybe I could help.
You're not leaving us. You're not leaving Saltburn.
I don't think I'll ever go home again.
All right, so that was the trailer for Saltburn. It's basically about a young student at Oxford who meets a nice, well-off, charming individual from the school and goes back to his estate for summer break, I guess, or just to visit, and sort of his experience there and kind of walking into this world of what this family represents, I guess. Stephen Miller, what did you think of Saltburn?
Man, where to start? Is this my favorite trashy movie where someone drinks period blood of the year? No, it's not. Is it my favorite movie where Jacob Elordi brings an outsider into a lavish but soulless estate of 2023? No, it's not either. But is it my favorite elevated trashy film featuring Rosamund Pike, the repressive violence of upper-class living, and someone's surprisingly good-looking penis? No, that would be Gone Girl, actually. This movie... I was into the idea of this movie. I thought the trailer was pretty compelling. I didn't know what it was. Honestly, I was kind of bewildered what it was going to be, but I was curious about it. I love me Barry Keoghan. That's how I'm going to say his name. Just split the difference between all the pronunciations I've heard. I think he's great in everything. He's a very interesting, like, idiosyncratic actor. As we talked about a couple episodes ago, I like Jacob Elordi. I think he is very good at being the aloof object of affection and intrigue. And I think here he does an actual really good job of playing the character Felix as this kind of like rich, privileged guy who isn't a total dick, but also is a little oblivious to his own privilege, but the kind of guy that a less cool person like the character of Oliver might latch onto and idolize, and he might take him under his wing. I thought he played that really, really well. And this whole movie, it's a weird thing where the actual premise on its face, the thing it starts with and decides it's going to be at the beginning, I thought was pretty great. Like, I liked it. This opens with Barry Keoghan meeting Jacob Elordi kind of randomly by happenstance, befriending him, having moments of awkwardness where the gap between their respective wealths was clear, the fact that he isn't really an insider even though he thinks he is, the kind of awkwardness as he tries to get closer to Felix but realizes he can never truly fit in his world. I liked all of it. I liked the idea of Felix having this kind of sadness inside of him because wealth is its own kind of burden, this thing you can't escape that makes you be isolated from other people. I would totally have been into the Virgin Suicides version of this movie, which is kind of what it seemed like it was doing for a while. I don't want to spoil it, and I won't, but I'll say this movie isn't doing that. It's using that starting point of a good movie and deciding to be twisty and reveal-y and do constantly surprise you. And every reveal made me like it less and less and less. It was this weird thing where the more clever it tried to be, the more I felt annoyed by it. And in the end, I don't know, this felt like a well-acted but totally empty exercise in style. And I wound up being pretty aggravated about it by the time the movie ended. Like, I can't hate it because I think everyone is good in it. It had some solid laughs, some solid awkward moments. I thought it was doing an interesting thing. And then it's like Emerald Fennell just decided to, hey, let's not do anything interesting. Fuck it. Let's actually make this movie dumb instead. And I don't know. It was just a really weird... It was losing a half star like every 30 minutes as I watched this movie. And yeah, it was an odd feeling. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I don't think I was as aggravated by it as you were. I still kind of... It's kind of one of those things where, like, I really, really liked it at the front start. You know, like the initial story that we're getting, the straightforward what the trailer is selling of, like, this young guy who's sort of being brought into this world that's so much bigger than what he could have imagined for himself, was sort of interesting. You know, like, when I watched the trailers, I was like, all right, this is sort of like a modern, darker Gatsby sort of situation. Yeah, like, that's kind of what I was expecting. And, you know, the film that we get is not... that at all. But I think that, like, all the stuff at the beginning, I'm 100% vibing with. I'm really, really enjoying it. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And then, you know, like, the fear that I have when he's going to reach the family is just, will they accept him, right? Like, he has this one person who seems like out of his league as far as friendship goes, but has embraced him and really, really likes him around. And I'm sort of wondering for the shoe to drop of what happens when he gets thrust into the bigger life. Like, we're already seeing signs at school about other people in Jacob Elordi's character, his circle, who don't like the fact that this new person is coming in and getting attention, right? So there's already that tension there, but I was interested to see where it goes with the family. As soon as we arrive at the estate, at Saltburn, the film really wants to sort of veer into like what's the Triangle of Sadness territory, where it's sort of trying to be a satire of wealth, but it's not particularly. It feels as though it's about to try to be a takedown of the rich, but what it really just turns into is sort of like very quirky characters. And it's not saying anything about them. It's just like them getting a chance to be quirky. So it's kind of like the film kind of gears me up to transfer into this sort of satire. And then it's like, oh, no, you just want to have some weird characters that I'm going to watch. And then it just slowly starts to delve into darker and darker territory. And I think that for me, I am not sure I want to or am supposed to root for anybody in this film. It's more like I'm just watching a journey, and it transitions from one type of genre to slightly another type of genre to slightly another type of genre. And in the end, I'm kind of golf clapping, not because I thought it was clever, but just kind of like, I'm just kind of like, fuck it, I'm embracing what this thing is doing. You know, it's gonna.
When you say the end, do you mean like literally the final scene, or you mean the reveal, the framing device?
Not the reveal, the framing device, but I mean like once it's clear what the end goal is, I'm kind of just like, now I'm just it's like you wore me down, and now I'm just watching this trajectory, and now I'm watching it for what it was, which was a Fantastic Fest film. You know, like beforehand, like before when I watched the trailers for this, I wasn't associating it with the type of thing that you would watch at Fantastic Fest, which is a genre film festival. But then like by the time I'm 3/4 of the way through this film, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm recalibrated now. Now let's try to watch this for this. And it's not that I suddenly enjoyed it again. It was just that I was kind of like, I know what I'm watching now, so I'm not struggling with what it's doing anymore. I'm just okay. Yeah. I'm in for the ride now. Let's do what we're doing. And then it happens, and I'm kind of like, cool. In the end, it's not like. The reason I'm golf clapping is because it's like, you did what you set out to do. It's not because I'm like, yeah, like you did it. It's just kind of like, all right, this is what you wanted to make and you made it. And it's kind of, it definitely didn't blow me away. I liked the film it was starting out to be, and the film it became, I understand what it was doing, and I'm like, you accomplished that, but it's still like sort of thing where it's like, this film wants to feel edgy and shocking and like take you through things, and I don't know if it's to any specific end, but I didn't hate it for doing what it did. I just regretted my miscalibration going into it.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think I feel a little similarly, though maybe I'm more cocky or whatever in thinking not only was I miscalibrated, but that the movie itself didn't know what it was doing, and that those scenes were actually pointless. It's weird because I can like a movie that is provocative, that just like wants to make me uncomfortable. This just felt very shallowly provocative to me. Like, it felt like scenes happen so they can be the scene you talk about, not because they actually flowed from anything at all in the story. Like, I think it's hard to do this without spoiling things, but the way we are presented, Barry Keoghan's character, and the way he evolves over the course of the movie, it fits that Great Gatsby mold that you were talking about. It kind of perfectly, actually, like him and the sister. Like, there's so much there that kind of fits that storyline. But then occasionally he will just do a thing that feels like it only makes sense because he is in a movie, or a switch has suddenly flipped and he has become some kind of daring, shocking character. And I understand, God, without spoiling, I get the golf clap maybe like retroactively being like, okay, now we get all of it. But the way the movie plays out, it just doesn't feel reasonable or like an actual overflowing of how that character would behave in this situation. It feels like the director saying, hey, we are going to make a movie with not one, not two, but three very shocking, weird, memorable moments that people are going to talk about later. And each time it happened, I was more annoyed with it. Like, one, I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. You can be, you know, candy, sugar-coated, nightmare, edgy, sexual, whatever. It's fine. Do your thing. I don't mind it. There's a second one. That first one has to do with a lawn. some kind of event that takes place on the lawn. The second one involves like a bathtub. And with the bathtub, I was like, okay, now you're just like fucking with me. Whatever. It's memorable. Props to the character for committing to the bit, but I don't know.
But also
you're overplaying your hand.
In that one, the actor is playing to the audience there, right?
Right, exactly.
Because there's the scene that was the way he was supposed to act it, and there's a little tag on the end, which clearly feels like he improv'd it, and the director was like, "Fuck it, that's going in."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Well, then there's a third one involving dirt. And that is where I was just completely lost on this fucking movie. And I don't mean in a logic brain, it doesn't make sense. I just mean it just felt juvenile and empty provocation without a point. It had completely abandoned the idea of this story being about anything. And I just, I don't know. I was annoyed with the excesses of this movie in a way that Promising Young Woman was it had a ramp up. It had a point of view. It took it to extreme kind of wish fulfillment-y places, but it was one thing the whole way through. You get what it is doing. This felt like a bunch of half-baked ideas of wouldn't it be fucking awesome if I put this in a movie tied together with nothing except for a cool aesthetic and actors who can make it semi-convincing that this is a story. I just felt like it was tied together in a very lazy way.
Yeah. To that point about it feeling like it is a cool aesthetic and a half-baked thing, the way you calibrate properly to this film is you close your eyes while the trailer's playing and just listen to that droning, sort of slow clubbish kind of techno sound, and just feel that, and then maybe listen to half the dialogue and be like, all right, I know what I'm getting into. It's the movie that I'm imagining goes with that sound, that grinding sound, and that's the film that you get. You talked about...
I know what you're imagining, you dirty dog.
But when you talk about Barry Keoghan's character feeling like he's sort of in something else, and I think that he really is the star of his own film in this case, right? And his character does feel that way, and it's only through scenes will happen that will feel weird and out of place, but it's because you're seeing the him who is real. You're actually getting a view into his psyche in that moment, but it's you're not seeing the way he acts normally around other people, because this is him in a private sense, right? And I feel without going into it too much, that there isn't, the reason why there's that golf clap at the end is because I do realize all the weird shit that made me go what the fuck are you doing, movie? I'm all right, this all makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it blows my mind and I'm oh my God, so good. It's just one of those things where I'm all right, I get it. You did it. Cool. You got it, right?
Yeah.
and I think
get it.
too,
I don't want to dunk on it endlessly. It's just it's weird because it's half of a movie that could be really good, and it's they decided to just make it not good instead.
Yeah. What's funny is while you were talking about how you see that character and what he does, I was going to compare him to another character from another property, and then I realized that Barry Keoghan literally is that character in another property.
Oh yeah.
I'll bleep that out.
Yeah.
So it was just funny where I was I was gonna make the comparison, and then I was oh no, A, I shouldn't make the comparison, and B, it's hilarious that he literally is that character.
I mean, his casting is great for this role, for this movie. This fits too with his Banshees of Inisherin character as the kind of pitiful person who is in love, in that Great Gatsby mold, at least, of the movie you think you're gonna get. He's kind of great at it, and he's playing a little bit more, quote, normal and put together here than usual, and he does it well. I totally believe him as this nerdy guy who is not entirely uncool. He isn't his friend who's saying NFI not fucking invited. He is he could hang with the cool kids at school a little bit, but he doesn't have the sauce. He doesn't have the thing that makes him fit all the way. And it's about the striving, and he, as an actor, I think he embodies that really well. I also think Rosamund Pike, I thought was very funny in this movie, intentionally funny. I think she's trying to be this. She is in the Triangle of Sadness version of this movie, of the wealthy mother who is just way too obsessive and in denial and wants to control everything and wants reality to be whatever she desires for it to be. And I think she plays it well. I can see a movie where they would all even fit together pretty well, and that movie becomes Ready or Not or something. Like, that would be the genre exercise I thought this was going to do. Is start with something real and grounded and then eventually snowball into a movie that is doing a hyperbolic version of the social commentary it was already doing before. But it just twists and turns in ways that make it feel like it isn't about anything.
If I don't think we need to do a full spoiler segment because we could just go off on like weird scenes, but I do have a reworking of the plot and a removal of one scene that I think might fix it, and I want to run it by you. So we can do that.
No, we can do a quick spoiler section.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
Let's do it. We can go over, I believe there are 4 scenes that are weird that we can talk about. And I like 2 of them.
All right. Well, before we do that, is there any more that you would like to say kind of about this story?
It's hard to speak generally more than that. I guess on a personal level, the earlier parts, like when I went to college, I was totally alone. I didn't know anyone else from Escondido who went up to Berkeley. And I, for whatever reason, was placed in the jock dorm. So it was me and then 3 quite cool athletes.
Yeah.
And at least a couple of them, they were from a rich part of California. They knew a million people who were also going to Berkeley at the same time. We were like in a party the first night of moving into the dorm. It's like they just had this thing about them that reminded me of the Jacob Elordi vibe, where he's just kind of cool. And like they were nice. They were kind to me. They weren't being dicks or anything. But I just I felt at the beginning like I can't live up to you because I don't flow through life the way you flow through life.
Yeah.
And I felt really nostalgic watching this movie open and kind of depicting that relationship, because it was the kind of thing that I felt in my own life for a while too. And then of course you grow up and realize you're all the same and it's fine.
Yeah.
But I was like quite into it and quite moved. There's a scene with a school dance and a rock that is being thrown later, and all of that, I thought it was just pitch perfect. Love where this movie is going. Can't wait to watch this relationship deepen and strain in kind of competing ways. That I'm so into what the movie was doing, and I think that is why I'm more disappointed in the movie it wound up being, because it actually hit a personal nerve that I was really excited to dig into more.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Like I think that opening does feels great, and like I was definitely tuned into that as well. And I was like, oh, this might be a really great film. You know, like you wanted it to be like somewhere in between like The Holdovers and like Shithouse, right?
Yes. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's like what this film was kind of making you feel like it was going to be. And then it just, as soon as it gets to Saltburn, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. This is a different movie.
Yeah. It's funny, this will not be the only time in tonight's recording session I mention Shithouse. But we can get to that next.
Oh man, good times. All right. I think we're probably good on the pre-spoiler stuff. So
yeah,
let's go ahead and get to our pre-spoiler verdicts. Stephen Miller, if you were going to give this a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you give it?
Man, in terms of Letterboxd rating, I should be going wait for rental, but I'm just on the curve of what I felt this movie could do. It's pass with a caveat for me. It had a lot of great potential. I think it lived up to that potential for a while, but it just soured me on itself. It kept undermining whatever it was doing, and I left feeling vaguely annoyed by the movie. So caveat is, I think all of the cast are great. I think the opening of the movie is very good, and I think they could have done the autopilot version of this story, and it would have been a recommend with a caveat. But then they decided to get clever and provocative and shocking, and your mileage may vary. Maybe you'll have a blast, but to me, it just felt like it wanted to be a thing people talked about rather than be a single piece of art that is saying something. And to me, I don't like how intentionally, much like Barry's character is in his own movie, this felt way too aware that it was a movie trying to be seen by an audience and talked about. And I would have rather it tell a story directly rather than be so self-conscious about what it is doing to me as the viewer. So whatever. I think the quality is probably better than I'm making it sound, but I just was disappointed with how they played it.
Yeah, as I said at the top, I was not as aggravated by this film as you were. It still didn't leave me going oh yeah, I'm glad I saw Saltburn early. But for me, it was sort of just like I said, golf clap by the end, and for me that earns it a wait for rental. I think the beginning is generally good, and the end sort of becomes fun in a weird, twisted way, but it still doesn't really amount to much. But I didn't actively dislike it.
Yeah. Happy for you.
Thank you. I'm happy for me too. But yeah, that is our pre-spoiler verdict. Now we're going to get into our pre-spoiler goodbyes. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at all the social networks at @SDavidMiller. That's including X, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, whatever you want to do, or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or at a few different social networks at ChristopherIRL, including Mastodon.social. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. That music is playing now. It's going to fade up. We're going to disappear for a few seconds, and when that music fades back out, we will arrive at Saltburn and be able to discuss full-on spoilers for this film, so get ready for that. All right, we are back. This is spoiler territory. It's the after part of our review of Saltburn. We're here to talk full-blown spoilers. We've made it to the estate, and we're having our full-dress dinner party, and we're going to let you know all the fun little bits. I think there's a few scenes I know you want to talk about, but let me get to my ways to fix this film, Stephen.
Sure.
I kind of have two alternate paths. So there's a moment in the middle of this film where Jacob Elordi Felix decides to surprise Oliver and take him to go see his parents, or his mother, or what he assumes is just his mother. And this whole ride, it's like, oh, we're surprised, I'm not telling you where we're going. And then Barry Keoghan starts to get really, really upset about the fact that he's going to his parents' house. His mom at this point is supposedly a drug dealer. His dad is supposedly dead, having died of an overdose or suicide. I forget which one it is. But it's supposed to be a bad situation at home. They arrive at a plenty nice home, and both parents are alive. And it's sort of like an, oh shit, Barry Keoghan has been lying about something this whole time, and now the shit is about to hit the fan. So that setup is great tension building, because now they both have to go back to the rich estate, and it's like, what's going to happen now? Is he going to tell the rest of the family that he's full of shit and it's all fake? Is he going to let him stay but totally treat him like shit now because it's all separate? What is going to happen? And I think that we were watching a film about a guy from the outside finding his way inside, but some of the other peripheral characters are trying to push him out too, because they're kind of jealous of his existence in that group now. So we were in a situation where now he's been welcomed in and everything is in jeopardy. And what if all the crazy shit he's doing, like the literal murders, are to keep inside the family, right? That is not exactly what's happening. And that kind of story would work, because then it's more of like a Coen Brothers situation, right? Where he was totally an innocent, fine guy, and then got in over his head, and now he's in murders and hiding bodies and shit like that, right? So you could still feel a tragic sympathy for this character, because you see that he's fighting for what he thought he had. It's still misguided, and it's still, you're not supposed to root for him, but at least you feel the tragedy of him going out of his way to try to prevent himself from being cast out from this family. That could have worked, and I think it would have fixed a lot of the problems that you have, and some of the problems that I have with this film. The problem is we get the flashback that this was all a big setup, and it was whole plan the whole time, and everything he had been he was setting it in motion from the very beginning. And then it's like, all right, well, like, that makes it almost a bridge too far. We're now, and that's kind of the thing where it's like, I could have rejected the movie then, but instead I was like, all right, it's fine. You know what I mean?
Okay, so your drop-off was later than mine then, because I assumed for most of the movie it was exactly what you just described, right? I assumed that was the story, is Jacob Elordi is going to out the fact that he has been lying the whole time, and so he has to kill Jacob Elordi so he can stay in the family.
Yeah.
That friend who wants him out, he has to basically blame him, plant information about him dealing, so he gets kicked out of the family. Then when the sister threatens to hate him, right, to say something that'll make him leave, he has to kill the sister. Even before he then violates that by, killing Rosamund Pike, which I don't actually see any reason for that. I guess it's just money, or he just wants... He has this obsessive desire to be Saltburn rather than to be accepted by any of the people involved in it.
He just wants to be the owner of all of the shit. Like, he basically goes out of his way to systematically destroy an entire family and just become that family.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is there's a telling of this, which is the Promising Young Woman version of this is a fantasy flipping some social dynamic, right? Like, generational wealth, it is like profoundly unfair, especially to someone who isn't the recipient of it. And what if I could just go in and fucking take it all? Like, you could imagine a version that does this, but it just tacked that on at the very end in a way that didn't alter anything about the movie. But even before, when I thought it was just him being a part of the family, I don't know, it didn't feel like it was built up to properly. Like, my experience of the movie was he is 90% just the shy guy trying to be accepted and trying a little bit too hard and it being awkward. And then 10% is him finger banging the sister and wiping the blood on her face. Or like he suddenly will just switch into like a Rasputin type role of like, I'm going to be like the worm tongue who tells you exactly what you need to hear. And I never believed those switches ever, ever, ever. And to me, that behavior is what annoyed me about the movie, because the moment he would do things like that, I've lost my anchor. I've lost anyone that I'm watching the film comprehending in any way. And the explanation that it is because he's trying to stay with the family, those behavioral patterns would be different if all he was trying to do was be beloved by the family. Like, it was weirder and more controlling, which makes sense in the very end when you echo back the ending of him. He not only wants to get their shit, he also is like an absolutely obsessive freak about their wealth, fucking the grave and slurping cum out of the bathtub and all that fun stuff. I just didn't buy it. I just didn't buy any of that stuff. And I don't think your fix would have made me buy it anymore.
All right, one more. I had two alternate tracks. So one was the desperation to stay in the family. The second one involves the fact that the family has this obsession with tragedy porn. It seems that what they want is to be surrounded by people of lesser means who have had a bad backstory, who it's like just hearing those stories. It's not that it gets them off. It makes them feel like, oh my God, I can't believe you went through that. Like, they have this obsession with hearing those stories, and they want to surround themselves by other people. So there is another track of the story where he thinks he's being welcomed in, that he's actually loved by all these people. And then slowly, by watching them treat other people poorly and hearing all these stories and seeing what they're obsessed with, he realizes that there's nothing about him that they actually like. It's all the horrible stuff that has happened. So the thing that he's so worried about, which is his backstory, is the only reason why he's even there. And that causes him to violently lash out and like take them down as a way of retribution for like the loss of the love that he thought he was acquiring from them. And like, that's another track that I think would have worked. And then that might have allowed for some of those weird things. Like once again, the reason I golf clap at the end is because all that stuff that seems out of character, it's like, no, the other part was an act. It's like, it's
sure.
So dumb. It's so dumb. But like at the same time, I'm like, all right,
Yeah, like if the reveal is he's always been a freak, that's fine. But to me, the combination of he's always been a freak and also he's a calculating super genius who got his way, those are two different vibes to me, and they just smushed it together into one reveal. Like I feel like if he is
Steven,
desperate to be loved and desperate for attention to the degree of him going nuts and killing people, I can imagine that movie. I like your alternate track the best of all the versions of this movie you've described so far.
Yeah,
but that would require some kind of breaking point, some kind of crescendo after which he becomes this guy who is lashing out. And the movie, like, not only in the ending is it obviously not doing that, which you're trying to correct, I think the movie linearly would play very differently if you were building up to that being what happens to him. So
yeah,
I agree. I like that version of the movie better.
I mean, to be fair, if it turned out he didn't have a tragic backstory and suddenly Felix didn't like him anymore, that might be the inciting event.
Mm-hmm. I do, by the way, I like Carey Mulligan in this movie. I think that character is funny. And I guess in retrospect, in your theory, the alternate track at least, none of her stories of woe actually happened either. Like maybe everyone is lying to this family to just get to stay there longer.
So what I took is that, because she ends up dead, right? And I don't think Barry Keoghan snuck out and killed her somewhere else to make sure she could never come back. I think she literally died because she just like went back to her old ways, right? But I think that there's the scene where, because I think he is a calculating super genius, because he's having that conversation with the mother where he's like, oh, if any of her stories were true at all. And that's him showing his hand to the family, but so confident that he can just tell them that he's lying and they won't even see it because he's giving them what they want. That she's so tragic, she's making up her tragedy. Right?
Yeah. Well, that is also the, yet again, that is the first stroke in his plan of getting rid of anyone who might lay claim to their fortune, right? Because he basically, when she has left, he is making sure she cannot come back, or trying to plant the seed at least that she is not to be trusted, because he knows there's a pattern of her leaving, then coming back, and leaving and coming back. He doesn't learn that she died in that moment, right? It happens later that she died.
Yeah, I think it happens later, like,
because I feel like Barry plays it when tricking the audience as if he's feeling some guilt in that moment that he doubled down on being negative about this woman who wound up actually needing help and dying. But that's another thing where he's playing to the audience, because he is having a revelation only we can see, but that revelation implies a conscience that he doesn't actually have.
I thought he was playing to the mother. Like, oh my God, that story is tragic. I can't imagine. Like, I thought he was, because like, it's like the mother gets the best of both worlds, according to her, right? Not only did we get rid of the person who was tragic and we were getting tired of her tragedy, but then she ultimately dies as soon as she leaves. So not only is she tragic, but she's tragically dead, and we were the only thing keeping her alive. It's like a triple
she's always
whammy.
so dramatic like that, or whatever the quote was. See, that's the thing, is I remembered him reacting to how calloused and how easily Rosamund Pike could discard this person and not even care that she died anymore. But maybe I'm remembering it wrong.
It's hard to remember everything straight with all the wild shit in this film.
Anyway, do you have any theory, and you don't need to, for the grave fucking scene? Because that was the one that most lost me in terms of how long it went on and how much it was just trying to be, quote, a moment rather than mean anything.
Like obviously that's for the audience. But his character is not doing it for the audience. The director is doing it for the audience, right?
Right.
But to me, I just bought into the idea that he just really wanted to fuck Felix, and now Felix is gone. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it's like he wanted a lot of ways into that family. And I think he settled for the daughter, targeted the mother, but ultimately wanted Felix. And then, but he premeditatedly killed Felix because he came out there with the poisoned alcohol.
He did.
Oh no, but that was after he was already going to get kicked out of the. That's right.
Yeah. I assume that wasn't going to be his plan originally, but maybe I don't really understand anything.
I think he wanted more than just to drink his bathwater and other things. I think he actually wanted, like he Jacob Elordi is physically the Saltburn that the that the estate is, right?
Yeah.
So he wanted to conquer both of those, and the fact that he had to kill him did not remove that lustful energy for him. So he had to literally fuck his grave.
Yeah, and
unless the crying was the acting part, in case anybody saw it, and he was literally fucking his grave in the way that you would piss on somebody's grave. You dislike them.
Yeah, because not that the movie needs to be whatever literal or make total sense, but in any literal understanding of this story, he's just jeopardizing everything by doing that. Like, the family has just walked away. They are still like he is out in the open. He could be seen by anyone, and he is just like mad fucking this grave.
But I think we've seen that this is the type of family who doesn't linger on that. They kind of just like when they first find the body, they're like, oh, isn't it lunchtime? Let's go eat lunch or whatever, right? So they're not going to hang around to see it.
Also, am I remembering right? And I think you referenced this too. He does make a kind of awkward pass at the mom in the midpoint of the film, or try to say something that would be like sexy or appealing, and then when she doesn't bite, he tries to pivot.
Yeah, he says, oh, Vanitha must have been, what's her name? Yeah, whatever the daughter's name. He basically says it must have been hard for the daughter having her as a mother, and she's like, oh, why is that? And he's like, because you're so beautiful. He definitely was trying to like put the seeds of like, you and I are gonna have sex later, and obviously his move worked because he gets to be the head of the household eventually. It just my read, and again, I know the ending kind of redounds back on the movie, so maybe it was trying to do something else the whole time, but my read was, at the time, watching linearly, it was this guy wants to become a part of Felix's life. He is attracted to this wealthy lifestyle. He needs it, and that attraction becomes sexual. And from there, it's just like, it played as if the movie was being him getting too big for his britches and getting corrupted by sexuality and hedonism and wanting everyone all the time, with the way he approaches the sister and the way he approaches the mom, and all of it. There was something about it that felt very like fake edgy to me, that just turned me off from the movie. Yeah, I think it goes back to that the calculating super genius side of it, is he was giving each of them what he thought that they wanted from him, right? But then he's not a calculating super genius, because he clearly abysmally cannot pick up on social cues. Hey, I mean, you can't deny it all worked out for him in the end. He gets results. Love him or hate him. I just want to acknowledge it. I have nothing clever to say about it, but naked dance at the end of the movie, I'm fine with it. I'm into it. That's a fun way to end a movie. It doesn't fit the movie that we've seen at all, but whatever. I mean, that was one of those flights of fancy where I'm like, sure, that's fine. That's fun. I argue it does fit it, because that is who he has been this entire time. But he's had to like keep up this ruse of like him being this like little guy, right? And this is him, like, he got everything that he wanted, like literally the last. He could finally go full goblin mode. Yeah, like it's little, and there's what this film needed is the tragedy of the dance ending right before fading to black, and him realizing that like, I got everything I wanted, but now I'm alone in Saltburn. Yeah. Like that's what it was missing. Yeah, that's true. All right. Did you hit all the 4 scenes that you wanted to talk about? There's the grave fucking, there's the tub licking, there's the period stuff. Was there a 4th one that you? I mean, no, we hit all of them, because the lawn, the approach of the sister is the first time he becomes like a kind of heightened sexual creep. And there I was okay with it. Like, it didn't totally fit, but I was like, okay, I'll give you one. In the world where he is being corrupted by wealth and hedonism or whatever, I was fine with that. But yeah, then the others just got progressively more like,
director wanting to have a movie moment rather than it serving the story in any real way.
What happened to the father, the dad of the family?
I think he dies off camera. I think because
But is it natural, or does Barry do it?
We assume, because Barry sees a newspaper article of him dying at a certain age, and that is when he goes to the cafe and waits to see
because that was
Rosamund Pike
after
so
he had
can
already
finish his
left.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he was just biding his time until he was like, oh, now if we were to get married.
Yeah, or he thought he had lost, because the dad kicked him out, and he didn't think he was going to get kicked out. And then when the dad dies, he's like, yes, I still have a chance.
No,
so,
I think it was all part of
it
was all part of the plan, right? Because he wasn't going to marry the father and get the father's fortune, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess if all the kids were dead and he was like a son, that he might still be able to inherit everything when everyone else died. But like, I think it was always like, I need to legally be the one in charge of all of this. And then that allows me to like finally take out Rosamund Pike and then be done.
Yeah. I can't explain this in a helpful way, but the combination of the goblin mode that Barry goes in this movie, and the nudity and the dancing, all makes me think of Holy Motors, which is a much more cool, weird movie if you want to go that route. I don't think all of those happen at the same time in Holy Motors, but separately they definitely all happen at least.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, that's a review of Saltburn, everybody. We have to go take off now and record a little review of Dream Scenario.
Bye.
Bye.